Dear reader, when last I wrote to you, I was being rattled across the countryside in an iron box, half mad with smoke and motion, on my way to be inspected by a gentleman and his family, like a prize sow at market. You will be relieved to know I survived the journey. Whether I survived the gentleman is another matter entirely. His name need not concern us. He had a moustache he was clearly very proud of, a fortune Mother had memorized to the penny, and a way of speaking about himself at great length, while believing he was making conversation. We had been acquainted for perhaps 11 minutes, when he leaned forward, fixed me with a look of great tenderness, and confided his single, dearest wish in life.
He wanted children, he said. Many children. A great houseful of them. 8, he thought. Perhaps 10. He said the number 10, the way other men say the word holiday. 10, dear reader. He looked at me, a woman he had known for 11 minutes, and saw 10 children. I looked at him and saw a long and complicated way to ruin my figure, and quite possibly my life. And it struck me, sitting there, nodding politely, that I had stumbled upon a question worth a great deal more than my marriage prospects. How on earth did Victorian women survive having so very many children? And the question no one was permitted to ask aloud, what did a woman do if she would very much rather not? So come along with me, dear reader. Today we abandon the gentleman to his moustache, and we explore the truth about childbearing in the age of Victoria, the staggering number of children, the genuine danger of the whole business, the heavy silence that surrounded it, and the surprising lengths to which women went to take the matter into their own hands. Let us begin with the sheer scale of it. The Victorian family was, by our standards, enormous. It was entirely ordinary for a married woman to bear 5, 6, 7 children, and a great many bore considerably more than that. Our own dear Queen Victoria, who sat upon the throne and set the fashion for the entire age, had 9. 9, dear reader. And she is on record, rather wonderfully, as having found the whole business of babies and childbearing perfectly tiresome. She did not enjoy it in the least. She simply kept doing it because that, in this age, is what a married woman did. Why so many? Several reasons, all of them pressing. There was no reliable, respectable means of preventing it. We shall come to that. Children were, in poorer families, a source of labour and of security in old age. And underlying everything was the simple, grim arithmetic of the age. You had a great many children, partly because you fully expected to lose some of them. And here, the comedy must step aside for a moment, because the truth was genuinely hard. In the Victorian age, a heartbreaking number of children did not survive infancy. Disease, poor sanitation, contaminated water and milk, and homes that we would consider dangerously unhealthy all took a fearful toll, and the toll fell hardest of all upon the poor. For a mother, this meant something almost unbearable to contemplate, that she might give birth again and again, and bury child after child. Bearing many children was, in part, a defence against losing them, a hope that some, at least, would live to grow up. And the danger was not only to the children. Childbirth itself was perilous for the mother. Without our understanding of infection, doctors in this period were only beginning to grasp why washing their hands mattered. A great many women died from complications and fever following birth.
To be a Victorian wife who bore 8 or 10 children was to face that danger 8 or 10 times over. So when my mustachioed gentleman spoke so warmly of his 10, he was, without the faintest idea of it, describing a decade of genuine risk to a woman who was not him. Now, you might reasonably ask, if childbearing was so frequent and so dangerous, surely people spoke openly about how to manage it. Surely there was sensible advice freely given? Oh dear reader, you have forgotten what age we are in. This is the age of respectability, of propriety, of pretending that unpleasant things simply do not exist if one declines to mention them. Anything to do with the body, with intimacy, with how children came to be in the first place, was wrapped in such a thick blanket of silence and shame that a young woman might marry knowing almost nothing about what marriage would involve. Information was whispered, if it passed at all, from mother to daughter, between friends, in the careful coded language women used among themselves. Even the medical men of the day were often little help, hemmed in by the same prudery as everyone else, and frequently convinced that a respectable woman ought not to take any interest in the subject whatsoever. The result was a vast, deliberate ignorance, enforced in the name of decency, which meant that women who wished to understand their own bodies, or to limit the number of children they bore, were largely left to manage on their own, in secret, and to share what knowledge they could find among themselves. And manage they did, because here is the truth that all the silence in the world could not hide. Women have always sought ways to control how many children they had. The Victorians were no exception. They simply had to be discreet about it. Some methods relied on timing and restraint, imperfect, much debated, and dependent on knowledge that, thanks to the Great Silence, many women didn't accurately have. Others turned to the apothecary and the advertisements at the back of the newspaper, where one could find all manner of remedies and devices, described in language so coy and coded that one practically needed a cipher to understand them. For the relief of female irregularities, the advertisements would murmur, and every woman reading knew precisely what was meant, while propriety was technically preserved. There were folk remedies passed quietly between women, of varying effectiveness, and, I am sorry to report, varying safety, for an unregulated age produced a great many tonics and pills of dubious and occasionally dangerous content. There were early devices, sold under the counter and never named directly in polite print. And there were practitioners, some respectable and some very much not, who could be discreetly consulted. I shall not catalogue the particulars for you, partly out of decency, of which I have a surprising amount when it suits me, and partly because a good deal of it was useless, and some of it was perilous. But the essential point stands, and it is a powerful one. Even in an age that refused to so much as name the subject, women found ways. Quietly, cleverly, and at no small risk, they exercised what little control they could over their own lives and bodies. And here is the truly fascinating part, dear reader, the part that tells you these efforts were not in vain. Over the course of the Victorian age, particularly in its later decades, something remarkable happened. The number of children in the average family began, slowly but unmistakably, to
fall. The great houseful of 8 or 10 gradually gave way to more modest families. This change began among the middle classes, people rather like me, dear reader, and spread outward over time. Historians still debate every cause, but the direction is not in doubt. Couples were increasingly choosing to have fewer children, and finding ways to do so. Why? A tangle of reasons. As fewer children died in infancy, there was less need to bear so many in the hope that some survived. As families moved to the towns, children became less of an economic help and more of an expense to feed, clothe, and, increasingly, educate. And as the century wore on, despite all the silence and shame, knowledge spread, and the very idea that a family might be deliberately planned became gradually more thinkable. It was the quiet beginning of something enormous, a slow shift in how people thought about marriage, family, and a woman's say in her own future. It would take many more decades and braver people than my mustachioed gentleman before any of it could be spoken of openly. But it began here, in this prudish, silent, contradictory age, in whispers between women, in coded advertisements, and in the quiet, stubborn decisions of ordinary wives who had simply decided that enough was enough. As for my gentleman and his 10 children, you will not be astonished to learn that I declined the honour. I told Mother we were not well suited. Mother told me I was being particular. I told Mother that a man who plans 10 children in the first 11 minutes of acquaintance is not being romantic, he is doing inventory. She has not forgiven me. She is, as I write this, already composing a letter to another family with another eligible son, and I have no doubt that before long I shall be packed onto another dreadful train toward another dreadful drawing room. Such, dear reader, is the life of a woman of 21 who insists, scandalously, upon having opinions. But that, I think, is a story for another letter. Until then, I remain yours, unmarried, uninspected, and absolutely not having 10 children. Yours, History.